I'm joined by Mr. Richard Firth, who's the CEO of MIP Holdings, a company that specializes in software solutions for the financial services industry. Richard, good day.
Good day, Chris. Thank you very much for having me.
We're talking today about communication, and especially communication to members using a multitude of applications and technologies to reach to them, because not necessarily everybody has got their access to the same level of technology. And it's crucial that one gets to them using a variety of platforms. And Richard, you guys specialize in that kind of area of the field. Can you maybe just share with us some of your experience in what works and what doesn't work in that area?
Yes, thank you, Chris. I've actually got a couple of slides, if you don't mind. I'll bring them up just to explain how we look at communication, this term Omni-Channel, why communication Omni-Channel, and how we service a member in this complex digital environment. So to answer your question, Chris, we really talk about moving from measuring a service level to actually managing a customer's experience in the organization or a member's experience in the scheme or managed through the administrator. And just to give effect to what I'm talking about, if you look at a normal business process that we used to manage and everyone managed yesteryear, you've got a business, you've got a machine, you've got an admin system, and you've got a consumer, you've got a customer out there. And in a normal service level driven process, you've got a new member onboarding where we bring a new member on board. That new member would capture some data. We would capture data, whether it's on a website or the member captured themselves or through an administrator. That would then execute some form of scheme rules and pricing. And lo and behold, we would then send the member a welcome pack via email on their work email address or whatever the case might be, whatever the member had given us. And that really used to be how we measured the service level. So the company could say, well, how long did it take us to service this member? How long is our onboarding process, etc. But when you move into the digital world, what could now transpire is the member opens their welcome pack and they suddenly see, oh my gosh, my salary's wrong. I've got the wrong salary on this welcome pack because that salary came from the employer at that point in time. So what the member would then do is not respond to the email because they're busy at the airport. They've only got their cell phone on them. They've opened the document on their cell phone, and then they open WhatsApp. And they send a WhatsApp query. I'm really sorry, but I see that my salary is wrong on my welcome pack. And we've got to be able to give context to what actually transpired earlier. So we've got to either automatically respond to the customer if the system, if it's something like what is my monthly contribution? AI can understand that, and it can then automatically respond to the member. Or what we have to do is assign this query to the relevant staff member. Now you can already see that this member is in a digital channel. They are asking a question, but there's no difference between them asking this question on WhatsApp or phoning a call center and asking the same question. So you start to see different communication types flowing into the call center for responses back to the customer. And what's interesting is these responses will go back in the same time frame as we would normally get back to a member in a call. So it's not like email where maybe 4 hours, 5 hours later we land up responding to the email. We actually want to bring this in real time into the scheme. We want to assign it to a person. We want to automatically respond, and the response then goes back to that member via the same elected channel. So it means that we're not going to go back to the customer via email and how we communicated them before. We're actually recognizing the channel the customer came in and saying, okay, I'm going to respond to you in the WhatsApp channel now with your query. But also what happened is we realized that maybe in this process the salary is wrong. So the salary came from HR, the HR payroll department. So in line with this process, we actually have to also reach out to HR to find out why we've got the wrong salary. And to get back to the member in the right amount of time, we need to make sure that we manage that customer experience. So as you can see, we're not going back to the customer to say, oh, Mr. and Mrs. Customer or Mr. and Mrs. Member, you need to get back to your payroll department and go and find out why it's wrong. We can execute internally and go and solve that problem. So by the time we get back to the member in the WhatsApp channel, we can say, yes, we recognize that it was this, we've changed it to this. Can you please confirm that you're happy with what we've done? And in that scenario, the member has now been serviced, and we've gone over and above the call of duty to ensure that the data and the experience of the customer is actually quality. So kind of shifting away from talking around digitizing a process, we want to talk about socializing the process. So it is almost taking all of your back-end processes that run in the scheme or in the administrator and sharing those processes with the customer out there. And as you rightly said in your intro, there are huge numbers of communication types now. You know, you've got in-app push notifications where we've built a mobile app and the customer wants to communicate inside the ecosystem. Then you've got external ecosystems like chat mechanisms, WhatsApp, WeChat, Facebook Messenger. They all work fairly similarly, and different customers, different age groups will use different mechanisms to communicate. Likewise, the live chat applications that are available, how do they tie in with your infrastructure? Social media, Facebook and Twitter. If a member makes a comment on social media, can you detect it? Can you pick it up? And are you able to respond to them and respond to the community that they raised, either their concern or their compliment? Are you able to actually communicate to that? And then, you know, there's still the old types, the emailing, the SMSing, MMS. We can't write off USSD. We're finding a lot in South Africa and north of our borders in Africa. There are many people who still use USSD. So it's not about moving technologically forward and being able to drop some of these communication channels off your strategic roadmap. You have to actually retain them also depending on the LSM where you're working. Paper, there's not a lot of paper. There's still paper, not a lot coming in. And generally paper is coming in attached via an email or whatever the case might be. Someone's taken a scanned document, or they've taken their cell phone, taken a photo of a document and sent it in. Online web queries. And then obviously the big one, telephone calls or still using the call center. But it's really important that each one of these mechanisms actually generate metadata that we can use in the servicing of the customer, in understanding what channel it is and how we get back to the customer. Adding things like voice and text sentiment analysis, where we can pick up, is the customer happy? Is the customer unhappy? So in a call, an unhappy customer, the sentiment analysis tooling can automatically shut that or reroute that call to a senior manager or a call center manager who can actually deal at a different level with the customer. So you can see that communication and socializing the customer is becoming a very different animal to where we are at the moment.
Absolutely fascinating stuff. What strikes me is the usage of the multitude of apps, as we said in the intro as well. And I mean, you just explained that exceptionally well. Bringing all these things together and get them to talking to each other real time. And then also, I mean, what also gets me is this, that getting the mood of the person to try and figure that out. This is brilliant. It's so much more efficient, I think, in your response then to your customer than you could ever be. In the old normal scenario. Absolutely brilliant.
Yes, Chris. And also it starts to define the workflow systems and the people who are going to service the customer. So we can become much more accurate with an inbound call where we route the call. Just to have a generic call center, often a generic call center cannot answer a detailed query around why my investment is sitting so low or so high, or a complaint that a customer has around the increase that we gave them. That it actually needs a level of knowledge that's slightly higher. It needs a knowledge worker to work on that. So we are able to now route via sentiment or via what the customer is actually doing inside the organization to get specialist attention to that member. So Chris, then, I really like this slide, and I like to use this slide because you see how many communication mechanisms there actually are out there. But you've got companies going out and trying to find solutions in each one of these verticals, these communication verticals. And I really like, if you don't know how to use them, it'll never be enough. You can see how this guy stacked the ladders. Instead of putting the ladders one on top of each other, they've just piled them all up. And that really is quite an analogy for a lot of companies at the moment, a lot of schemes where they've got a lot of tooling, but the tooling actually doesn't integrate with each other. The data is not owned by the member. The data sits in the channel of the tooling. So it becomes really, really complex in terms of how we design and drive the architecture to facilitate this omni-channel environment.
So Richard, tell me, I mean, does that mean the death of the traditional call center as we know them?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I don't know if McKinsey is a great slide to use in South Africa with all the negativity going on at the moment, but it actually speaks to this question. Frontline professionals will continue to play a critical role in reaching customers. So insurers must embrace the integration of physical and digital channels. And I hope you saw that in the previous slide, that there will be different methods by which customers actually talk to us. So we see that the call center, the call center will continue to play a very important role in the service capability. So yes, we will begin to automate some of the responses for the members, but we still need humans where those responses can't be automated. And we are working in a very complex environment. Financial services, as you know, 80% of people really need help when it comes to talking around their security, their financial security. So specialists are the order of the day. When you look at some of the tooling, like scripting tools in the call center, where the agent is not expected to actually make up the story for the customer or the member, the tooling will actually tell the agent, as the screen shows, exactly what to say. So, good day, you're speaking to Richard Firth, calling from whatever company. So, and as they tick off the script is then saved against that member's portfolio. So we know exactly what we said to the member. But I bring this up because what is also interesting now, if you think that you're having a WhatsApp conversation or a chat conversation with a member, now you can see that the call center scripts can actually be published into the WhatsApp channel. So we continually use the same function, and whether it's a human saying it or it's text going through to your member, the member will be getting exactly the same message. And I think this is quite an important thing for the schemes to look at, that you need to consolidate that message, especially where regulatory compliance now speaks to quality of outcomes, what you're telling a member, etc., becomes very important. So documenting the process and being able to do it up front is quite important, because now your executives actually have input on what we're telling membership about the products that we offer and about the members' future, financial future, etc. Even technology now to like breaking the calls down. So when someone actually speaks about their bank details, we can bookmark that little portion of the call, and we can save that against the member's portfolio. So if someone wants to find out where did we get the banking details from, we can actually play back just that portion of the call for security purposes to say this is where we got it from, and voice analytics will tell us it's the member speaking and they actually gave us this data. So very important, and we see the role of the call center is just going to be enhanced now by the technology capabilities given to them. One of the key elements of the call center is it's much more personalized service, and I'm sure you know, Chris, with respect to DSTV or multi-choice, guys are automating things using chat features, but you can never get out of the chat to actually talk to someone when you're stuck. And these are important things, I think, in financial services, that you cannot hide the call center. The call center has to be front and center of your strategy, even though you've got other communication mechanisms upholding the members' ability to communicate with the scheme.
So Richard, I mean, obviously POPIA and data protection has been a very big focal point recently. How does all of this fit into that framework?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. So my next slide actually speaks a little bit to how we've looked at the architecture required to manage peer compliancy, data retention. When did you receive the data? How long can you keep the data? And when must you remove the data? So we actually looked at building a consumer timeline. And the timeline actually displays any interaction that we have with the member in real time. So if I give you a scenario, let's just say the member goes to the website and captures their data for that they want to become a new member of the scheme. So they go into a website and they capture some data onto the scheme. We actually collect that information and we store that data that we collected against that customer's portfolio on the timeline. And then what happens is the customer is so happy with the service they jump onto Facebook and they say, wow, what a great service. We will then pick that up on the social media channel and we will put the customer's comments into their portfolio against their member portfolio. That mechanism then, what they might then do is, let's say they download the mobile app. They're so happy with the technology or whatever that's been the service that's been provisioned. They download the mobile app and they use the mobile app to go and look at their benefit statement. And when they look at their benefit statement, 10, 15 minutes later, they call the scheme. And because we can now collect information from the app, we know that they opened the app, they went to this menu, and they opened the benefit statement. So when they open up a chat, let's say it's a chat conversation, or they actually call the call center, doesn't matter which channel, when that call lands in the call center, we already have that customer profile in view for the call center agent, and we will put the benefit statement of the last action or the last action that member did on their portfolio in front of the call center agent. So instead of the customer actually trying to find the right person, we've now routed them to someone who understands benefit statements. We know what they did, and we answer the phone and say, oh, we see you've just looked at your benefit statement. Are you perhaps wanting to discuss this? And from the studies we've done, we can see there's 95% certainty that a customer calls a call center based on the last 1 or 2 actions that we've actually performed on that customer's portfolio. So you can see that the timeline is storing the data and it's storing the interactions that we've had with a customer, and also circumventing the gap between the digital and real world channels. Another key element here that you find in data retention or peer compliancy is so many schemes or businesses are outsourcing their chat functionality to a third-party business. But what they aren't doing is storing the chat data on the policy or on the member record, so we have access to that data all the time. You cannot leave that data in the channel. So if you pass the data retention period, you should be able to clean that chat. You should be able to clean that conversation. Depending on the channel a customer used, we need to be able to get back there to interact with it. Right down to, let's just say we are running the monthly collections and we're going to collect your contribution for this month's investments. That investment record and that integration record with the bank, we also store against the profile. So I hope it's quite clear here. You can see that at any point we can tell a member, this is exactly what we've done on your profile. This is the data that we've shared with third parties. In this scenario, we gave your data to WhatsApp and you responded via this thing in that communication that we had, and we gave your data to the bank on this date and time. But very important, a data retention policy and peer compliancy becomes so important when you're running these communication channels and using downstream tools, that you're not leaving the data in the tool, but you're actually extracting the data and keeping the data secure on behalf of the member. So when we look at compliancy, Chris, it becomes important on the what I call the inbound architecture, how data and information is coming into your architecture, and how are you dealing with it. And as we've spoken about earlier on, you've got a whole lot of forms that your member is able to use. And I'm just using an example here: email, scan, chat, human. But when these inbound communications actually hit you, each one of them has a different outcome and a different capability to route that member's communication and what we actually need to do with it. So we've actually built some bot technology that, for example, can open up an email. It'll open up the email and say, oh, there's an attachment here. It'll open the attachment and say, oh, okay, here's an ID, a copy of an ID document. It will then go into the workflow systems and say, is anyone looking for an ID document? But the beauty with the bot, it can read the barcode of the ID document and actually decipher the ID number. What we've also added, and this is about adding value to the data. So when we store the data, we know we've got the right data, which is another component of PAPIR, that it's the scheme's obligation to store the right data on behalf of the member. So once we read that ID number off the document, we can actually open a channel to Home Affairs, and we can go and bring back the data that Home Affairs has on their systems, right down to the picture on your ID document. So we can almost compare, is it the right person? If we're busy with an exit, we know we're going to be paying out a lot of money. Are we dealing with the right person, the right documents, the right images, etc.? We can compare all of that stuff up front, which is a big part, of the security compliancy. There are so many people trying to hack into these things because we know we're dealing with investment money, large sums of money, the hackers around the world. This is like, the very ripe apple tree, just ripe for picking. So taking this data in, we can then go and look at what work is outstanding, who's looking for this ID number. We match the ID number with a member, and we can then execute internal processes automatically to admin users, or automated processes that will allow the system to give that member that digital experience or that social experience. And then obviously it's also around the data retention, how we retain that data, how we allow to search on it, where we store it, who can access it, and what's it actually indexed against inside the system. Going back to that statement that I made earlier on, breaking the call recording down, or when a member actually sends in a copy of their payslip, so we can verify that our contribution is correct based on their salary, we can actually store the salary document against the data item of salary inside the admin platform. So when I look at salary, I can immediately get proof of salary was issued on this date and time by the member via this document. And I hope that makes sense, really rounding off the communication. It's not just about the inbound side of the communication, but how that filters through the organization and executes on back-end processes, and then responds back to the member about what we're actually doing with that specific data item that's been sent forward. In support of that, that's why it's not just about the communication channel. And I just give you a visualization here with the rules engine, media, bots, comms, timelines, etc., etc. There's so much architecture that actually surrounds what a scheme needs to do to facilitate this real world environment. And there are many, many products out there that a scheme can go and choose to drive that visualization, for want of a better word. So Chris, just to demonstrate for you, taking just one channel, the WhatsApp channel, I want to demonstrate how we've actually implemented it, so the audience can see how we've tried to ensure that we retain the data,
right? That
we retain the compliancy that the regulator needs. So I've got a picture here of a WhatsApp conversation, but one thing the audience will see is it's not WhatsApp. It's actually our admin platform. So we built the WhatsApp capability inside the admin platform. So in this example, on the left, there's Chris Costa. On the right, there's Robert Edwards, and they just chatting to each other. I just gave an example, so we're not sharing actual data. But hey, dude, what's up? I just thought I'd make a new demo video. Now, you see, these two people have communicated. They are staff inside the scheme. The staff are communicating with each other, and we are actually storing that staff comms. But because they're staff, we don't actually have to reach into WhatsApp. Now, WhatsApp, you pay for each conversation that gets opened up. It's costly for the scheme. So what we did was we built the capability that anyone can talk to anyone. The only time we open the physical WhatsApp channel and have to pay is when we reach out to the customer, to the member. So you will see the little eyes on the screen here, etc., will show you that, oh, the person's read it, and it's giving much more information around what's happening inside the administrator now. So the previous slide was two internal employees talking to each other. Now this slide here is the system actually reaching out to the member. So the member says hello on our chat channel, and the system will give them a bunch of options. We've all seen this before. The options are available. But what's quite important, when the member pushes 8 for what path they want to go down, they actually want to go into continuous improvement. That continuous improvement menu is then shown. But you will always see at the end, there's number 6, speak to an agent. So we finding that fundamental is that you've got to always give the member the out in the digital channels and measure that out. How many people are selecting the 6? Because you'll get a very good understanding of your digital, the ease of use in your digital world. So when the customer says, I actually want to speak to an agent, you will see that the system will automatically get back to the member. Hi, we are waiting for an agent to pick up your ticket. So the system has now allocated this call to a call center agent. But because they know you want to speak about CI or continuous improvement, it will route you to the right person automatically who is a knowledge worker in that area. It will then say an agent has picked your ticket and will be in contact with you shortly. So these are system responses, not human responses, keeping the member up to date with what's happening in the background. Now, when you look at the admin platform, the screen here, you will see on the top right-hand side, as someone who deals in continuous improvement suddenly gets a notification on their screen. And it's an urgent notification. It's red, so they can go there and say, oh, they can see the communication that's actually happening in WhatsApp, but they have not stepped outside of the admin system itself. It will also, because this customer has reached out to the WhatsApp channel, it will give context for the agent of who's actually on the line. So you will see Mati Labaskachni joined the call, and the system will tell them exactly who the member is on the line. So please may I have a look at my deductions on the policy, is what the members now put out there. And the system can then say, okay, it understands deductions. There's a PDF document showing a detailed breakdown of your statement as it currently sits. So the member actually gets a document, not only text, and can now decide what they want to do in the next step. But this shows you that the system is actually managing what's happening in the WhatsApp channel and what's happening on the member's portfolio inside the scheme administration system. And I just included these two slides where you can begin to see more automation, where the customer says hi, the system will say thank you for contacting MIP or whatever the scheme name is. Please select an option. We only just for the purposes here, we just put one. Please display the workflows linked to my membership, and the system then comes back with date of birth just to make sure that we've got the right person, and we can do some form of security checking against the member's portfolio. Once they come back with the date of birth, we know it's the right person, and the system will actually issue. We've got a claims process, we've got a complaints process, we've got a claims process and a complaints process. Which one would you like to drill into? When they say one, I want to look at my claims process, the system will then actually show where the claim process is. We can see we index the claim on, we've already risk assessed the claim. It's still got to go through authorization. We've still got to process the payment, but it's telling the member the latest finish will be 10/10/2022. You will get your payment. So you can see that the system is actually adding value. But now the real purpose of these slides is to show that nowhere do we leave our staff or the member in the WhatsApp channel. Everything is actually happening on the member portfolio itself. And that's quite important to ensure that you're running those two sides.
Richard, thank you very much. I think that is brilliant. I mean, what really fascinates me is the ability of to bring all these little channels, bits and pieces together into one. Is really fascinating, and I think that makes it so comprehensive. I think it makes your customer communication experience so much more comprehensive, and yeah, it's absolutely brilliant, lovely.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Being a software company, it's always difficult doing these presentations that you don't scare the hell out of someone, but trying to keep it at a business level, and yeah, hopefully people found it useful.
Impressive stuff, Richard. I look forward to chatting more to you guys. Thanks for your time, and thanks for explaining all of this to us. Brilliant stuff.
Cheers, Chris. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.